Hey guys, I'm back with a new video. In this video, let us learn about transformations in CSS. Now in CSS, we have a couple of functions that we can use for transforming elements. We have the rotate function for rotating elements. We have the scale function for making the elements larger or smaller. The skew function for tilting them to the left or right. And the translate function for positioning them on the screen. So let us head over to our CSS folder and create a new folder 10.transformations, transitions and animations. And inside this folder, let us create a new file index.html. So right here, let us quickly scaffold our basic HTML boilerplate. So type exclamation and press tab, and let us give the title as CSS Transformations. Next, let us create a style sheet file and name it as styles.css. And let us link it right here. Next, let us create a div with the class of element. And now let us go right inside the styles.css file for the folder 10 transformations, transitions, animations. Now let us define some styles. So for the div with the class of element, let us set the width to 200 pixels, height to 200 pixels, the background color to aqua. Now let us give this a preview in the browser. So this is what we get. Next, let us position this div to the center of the screen. So for this, let us define a rule for the body element and let us set the display property to flex. And then set the justify content to center and align items to center as well. So let us give this a preview, and this is what we get. Now let us see some transformations in action on hover over the div that we have. So for this, we can make use of the hover pseudo class selector. So element : hover. So this is where we can make use of the transform property. So let us make our element a bit larger when it is in hovered state. So let us set the transform property to an invocation of the scale CSS function, and as an argument you need to pass some scaling factor. So let us set the scaling factor to 1.4 and let us try this out. Now you can see as I hover over it, the element becomes a bit larger in size. Next, let us apply another transformation function. Let us add a rotate function right after the scale function, and as the argument, pass in the degrees by which you want to rotate the element. So let us say 45 degrees. So save the changes and give this a preview, and let us hover over the div, and you can see first it scales by a factor of 1.4 and then it rotates by 45 degrees in the clockwise direction. Now let us tilt the div by 15 degrees to the left. So let us add our third transformation inline to our two transformation functions, which is skew, and pass 15 degrees to it. So you can see on hovering, this is what we get. Now if you use a negative value here for the skew, the box will tilt to the right. Now lastly, let us see the translate function. And using this function, we can position the element on our screen. So let me comment this first and use the transform CSS property. And now let us set the transform property to an invocation of the translate function. And let us pass a value of 12 pixels. And with this, on hovering over the div, this should get translated to 12 pixels on the horizontal axis. So let us try this out. And you can see this works. Now we can also pass a second argument to the translate function, and using this we can move the div up or down. So let us move it down by 12 pixels. So for moving it down, we can use a positive value of 12 pixels and give this a preview. So on hovering, you can see it first moves to the right by 12 pixels and then it moves down by 12 pixels, right? So this was all about the two-dimensional transformations. Next, let us cover about the three-dimensional transformations. Let us say we want to move this box along the z-axis. So the z-axis is the axis that comes out of the screen and towards us. So essentially we can move this element closer or far away from us. So let me demonstrate this. So let me comment this line first. Now let us again use the transform property So now let us see the translate z function. Now if we pass a positive value to it, this div will move closer to us on hover. And if we pass a negative value, this div will move away from us. So let us pass a value of 12 pixels and give this a preview and let us hover over this. So you can see nothing happens. Now this is because we haven't defined a perspective here. So before invoking the translate z function, we have to use the perspective function to define a virtual space. So let us define the perspective right before using the translate z function, perspective, and give this a value of 400 pixels. And to the translate z function, let us pass a value of 30 pixels. So perspective 400 pixels means that the distance between the element and us is 400 pixels. So now the perspective is defined and we are moving the div 30 pixels closer to us. So let us give this a preview. So let us hover over the element and you can see it is moving 30 pixels closer to us. Now if we use a negative value as the argument for translate z function, this div will move away from us on hover. So this was all about moving the elements in three-dimensional space. Now let us see how we can rotate our elements in the three-dimensional space. So for this, let me comment this line and again use the transform CSS property. Let us set the perspective back to 400 pixels. And now let us invoke the rotate function that we saw just a while back. So let us apply the variant for it along the y-axis and rotate this by 56 degrees. So save the changes and give this a preview in the browser. And this is what we get on hover. So you can see that the div is rotating around the y-axis, but we can also rotate it along the horizontal axis or along the z-axis. Now as a side note, this div is rotating around the center point, which is also called as the origin of rotation. So let us now see how we can move the origin of rotation. So for this we have the transform origin property, transform origin. And here we need to specify two values. One is the x offset and the other one is the y offset. So let us use 100% for both. And now let us give this a preview and you can see the origin of rotation has changed to the bottom right corner of the div. So this was all I wanted to cover about transformations in this video. If you liked the video, do give it a thumbs up or comment down below if you have any query. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and I will see you guys in the very next one.